Her name was Ameliaranne Stiggins. She was a pale child with black hair which she wore in curl rags from Friday night till Sunday morning. Her mother was poor and took in washing, because, besides Ameliaranne, who was the eldest, there were some 5 other little Stigginses to feed. Now it happened one day just before Christmas that the 5 little Stigginsons had colds in their heads, so Mrs. Stiggins sat them in a ring in the kitchen with their feet in a tub of mustard and water. After that she put them into a big bed and gave them hot gruel to drink, while Ameliaranne stood gloomily by and shook her head, which was covered with curl rags. The reason for the curl rags was that all the village children had been invited to a grand tea party at the squire's the next day, and Ameliaranne was gloomy because it did not seem as if the 5 little Stigginsons would be able to go. Sure enough, the next day the colds were worse, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Ameliaranne's hair was taken out of the rags, and she put on her Sunday dress and coat and hat and started off to the tea party with 25 ringlets bobbing round her neck. And the 5 little Stigginsons sat up in the big bed and howled horribly with disappointment. But Ameliaranne had hardly gotten out of the front door before she was back again. "I want the umbrella," she said, and she took it from the corner in the parlor where it lived. It was large and green with a goose's head for a handle. "It's never going to rain, Ameliaranne," said Mrs. Stiggins. "Whatever do you want to take the umbrella, for I don't know." But Ameliaranne tossed her head and said she wasn't so sure about the rain, and she started off again with the green umbrella clasped in one arm. The squire was a jolly old man, with a round red face and a beard like Father Christmas. But the squire's sister, Miss Josephine, was a cross old maid, and she thought it was a stupid thing to give a tea party to the village children. She was always there to see that they behaved themselves. Now Miss Josephine's eagle eye was upon Ameliaranne as she took her seat at the great long table with the other children, and, "Ameliaranne Stiggins," she said, "what are you doing with that great umbrella in here? You ought to have left it in the hall with your coat and hat." "Oh, nothing, please, Mum," stammered Ameliaranne, trying to hide the umbrella under the table, and Miss Josephine stared very hard at her, and then went on to find fault with somebody else. What a tea that was! There were cakes with pink icing and cherries on the top, and jam tarts that melted in one's mouth, and biscuit with creamy insides, and scones and buns. Ameliaranne seemed to be terribly hungry, for her plate was nearly always empty, but though she did not reach out and help herself, she was never allowed to wait long, because there was a great many smiling maids to pass the cakes and fill up the teacups. When tea was over, the children went back to the hall and put on their hats and coats. As they went out, a smart footman at the door gave each child an orange, an apple, and a bag of sweets. Ameliaranne took her orange and apple and bag of sweets and said, "Thank you, sir." Ameliaranne was almost the last to go because she had taken the wrong hat and had to go back into the house. She was ready to go through the door again when suddenly Miss Josephine stepped forward. "Ameliaranne Stiggins," she said, "I will put up your umbrella for you," and she took it firmly out of Ameliaranne's hand. "Oh, Mum!" cried Ameliaranne, and clutched Miss Josephine's arm. But Miss Josephine shook her off and held up the umbrella and shot it open, and out upon the floor, in the bright light that came from the hall lamp, fell jam tarts and iced cakes and biscuits and scones. "Greedy child!" said Miss Josephine, and Ameliaranne covered her face with her hands and wept. But the squire looked down at the feast on the floor and patted Ameliaranne kindly on the shoulder. "Come, come," he said. "It was your own tea you put in the umbrella. I know because I watched you, and you never ate anything at all." "Oh, sir," cried Ameliaranne, uncovering her face, "I'm glad you saw, 'cause I didn't take a bit more'n what I could easy have ate. And the 5 of them's got colds in their heads, and when I left them they were all howling something awful, and I couldn't bear to go home and tell them everything and them not have a bite, as you might say." "Well, well," said the squire, "I thought there was somebody missing, and of course there will be 5 teas left over, and I think we could find a 6th, as this one is spoilt. John," to the smart footman, "a basket, please, with cakes for 6 people." And John went like a shot, while Miss Josephine dropped the umbrella and walked slowly past Ameliaranne and the squire, with her nose in the air and a look of horrified disgust on her face. In 2 minutes, John was back again with a huge basket covered with a white cloth, and 15 minutes later, Ameliaranne staggered into the Stigginsons' house and upstairs to the bedroom with a huge basket on one arm and the green umbrella clutched in the other. And the 5 little Stigginsons sat up in bed with their eyes nearly starting out of their heads, and Mrs. Stiggins sat bump upon a chair because she said it gave her quite a turn when Ameliaranne took off the cover of the basket. For inside that basket were cakes enough for 6, and Mrs. Stiggins as well, and oranges and apples and bags of sweets, and when everybody had finished, Ameliaranne was sure that she must have eaten quite twice as much as she had meant to bring home in the green umbrella. End of Ameliaranne and the Green Umbrella by Constance Heward.